time this morning, and these are what's making headlines at this hour. South Korean President Moon JaeIns kicks off his week-long three-nation tour of the ASEAN in Thailand today with a bilateral summit with Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha. High on the agenda, innovative growth based on advanced tech. Chinese Foreign Minister flies to Pyongyang for a three-day visit as North Korea ramps up pressure on South Korea and the U.S. amid a deadlock in resuming denuclearization talks. A former U.S. envoy says Kim Jong-un knows this time isn't in his favor in an Arirang TV exclusive. And U.S. and China begin imposing additional tariffs, changing the rules of trade in ways that have no recent historic precedent. Still, U.S. President Donald Trump says the two sides will meet for talks this month. Now we begin with South Korean President Moon Jae-in's ASEAN tour. He kicks off his week-long three-nation tour of the ASEAN in Bangkok, Thailand on this Monday. First up on his itinerary is a bilateral summit with his Thai counterpart, Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha, where the two leaders are expected to discuss ways to improve the two countries' cooperation on innovative growth and advanced and leading technologies. Park Hee-jun files this report from Bangkok.
President Moon Jae-in starts off his ASEAN tour in Thailand. It's the first official visit to the country by a South Korean president in 7 years. On Monday, President Moon begins with a summit with his counterpart, Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha, to discuss the two countries' co-prosperity, cooperation among ASEAN nations, and peace on the Korean peninsula. According to the Blue House, he will also ask for Thailand's support as ASEAN chair as Seoul hosts the South Korea-ASEAN Special Summit and the South Korea-Mekong Summit in Busan this November. Through this trip, the two countries also aim to advance their joint partnership in Fourth Industrial Revolution technology. President Moon will be making a keynote speech at a bilateral business forum. He's to lay out a roadmap on ways the two countries can achieve co-prosperity through exchanges related to future technologies, such as future cars, biohealth, and robotics. The address will also involve ways Korea can contribute to Thailand's 4.0 policy and Eastern Economic Corridor. Thailand 4.0 is an economic model that aims to transform the country's economy from one that's dependent on agriculture to one based around innovation and R&D. It hopes to achieve this through new growth engines. And the Eastern Economic Corridor is aimed at connecting Thailand's eastern provinces to ASEAN's leading economic zones by 2021. South Korea's home shopping brand, Brand K, will also make its global debut in Bangkok. This event will help Brand K, a joint brand for small and mid-sized companies, enhance brand power and pave the way for more business in Thailand. President Moon will be working to help achieve Thailand's economic vision in hopes that it can create a synergy effect with Korea's New Southern policy. This should also open up new business opportunities for Korean companies hoping to make inroads into Thailand's markets. Park Hee-jun, Arirang News, Bangkok.
South Korea is on track towards removing Japan from its whitelist of preferred trading partners. According to Seoul's Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy, the government plans to implement a change to the nation's export control system that entails dropping Tokyo to the newly established A2 group this month. Now, the ministry says it'll complete its 20-day-long public opinion gathering process on Tuesday, a necessary step before it can make a public announcement of that revision. While it did not disclose the number of people who participated in this process, the related posting on the ministry's website received over 2,000 views. Dashing expectations for a meeting between the top diplomats of North Korea and the United States. The regime's foreign minister is unlikely to attend this year's UN General Assembly, which will be held in New York later this month. As a resumption of denuclearization talks between the two countries looks difficult, all eyes are now on the Chinese foreign minister's message to that regime as he's scheduled to be in Pyongyang from today through Wednesday. Kim Yo-sun with the details.
North Korea's top diplomat is likely to skip the UN General Assembly in New York this September, casting doubt over the possible resumption of high-level talks between Pyongyang and Washington. Although there is still room for working-level talks between the two countries, Washington's plan to engage in talks about 3 months since a surprise Panmunjom encounter has been put at risk. The U.S. Special Representative for North Korea, Stephen Biegun, who was in Seoul 2 weeks ago, has called on the regime to come to the negotiating table. Shortly after that message, North Foreign Minister Lee Yong-ho slammed his American counterpart as, quote, the die-hard toxin of U.S. diplomacy, while the regime's first Vice Foreign Minister Choi Sun-hee also criticized U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Choi warned that the expectations for dialogue with Washington are gradually disappearing. Against this backdrop, the regime is maintaining close ties with China and Russia. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi will visit Pyongyang from Monday to Wednesday to sit down with his North Korean counterpart. It's yet to be seen what message he will bring to the North, especially as Beijing firmly believes Pyongyang and Washington should resolve the denuclearization issue through dialogue, despite China's ongoing trade war with the U.S. Kim Hyun-sun, Arirang News.
So as our Kim Hyun-sun just reported, talks between Pyongyang and Washington have not seen much progress in recent days. Our very own Kan Young-gun sat down with Joseph Yoon, former U.S. Special Representative for North Korea, to analyze the current deadlock and future outlook for talks.
Hello, Mr. Joseph Yoon. It's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for making time to do this interview with us today.
Of course, happy to be here.
So let's get right into the questions. Despite the Moon-Kim-Trump DMZ gathering in June, North Korea has been saying some pretty strong words towards South Korea and the U.S. Why do you think this is?
I think there is clearly the feeling in North Korea that they have quite a bit of leverage, bit of bargaining power. And they have the bomb. They also have a delivery mechanism, which is the missiles. So I would imagine they're feeling confident. Yet at the same time, despite these meetings, there have been no substantive easing on what they are concerned with most, which is sanctions. So this is why I think they're coming out aggressive vis-a-vis Washington, aggressive vis-a-vis Seoul, because they want to send a message. We're not getting what you guys promised.
The U.S. says it's ready to talk when the North is ready. North Korea says it's ready for talks and even battles. Will the talks resume anytime soon?
I mean, right now, it really doesn't look like it's going to resume soon, but I have to believe that political interest of both Trump and Kim Jong-un point to the direction of resuming sooner rather than later. Remember, for Trump, he has an election coming up, re-election coming up next year. And so for him, North Korea is, for him, is a foreign policy victory. Kim Jong-un knows the political imperative of Trump, so he's gonna try to get maximum leverage out of it.
So going further into what you were just saying, with next year's election in mind, Washington has probably a lot of what-ifs mapped out as far as North Korea's denuclearization process is concerned. What are the people over at the White House thinking?
You know, there are clearly those who are very similar in thinking to Donald Trump, which is that, North Korea stopped testing missiles, they've stopped testing nuclear devices, so we are in a decent place. But then there are those who I call true believers, people like Bolton, who say, but we've achieved nothing. There has been no denuclearization, not even a little bit. Rather, they have probably gotten bigger nuclear arsenal. And so I think there is a division, which is why you are hearing mixed messages from Washington.
All right, I think that about wraps it up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Yoon.
Okay, good to be here. Thank you.
The trade war between the world's two biggest economies escalates further as the two nations have begun imposing additional tariffs on each other's goods beginning September 1st. The latest tariffs come despite signs that talks between the two will resume later this month. Our Moon JaeIns has more on a trade dispute that's entered a whole new territory.
The U.S. has begun imposing its additional 15% tariffs on more than $125 billion of Chinese imports, including smart speakers, Bluetooth headphones, and footwear. In return, China has also begun imposing a 5% tariff on U.S. crude oil on Sunday, the first time U.S. oil has been targeted since the two countries began their trade war more than a year ago. Speaking to reporters at the White House on Sunday, President Trump said the U.S. will be giving some of the money from the tariffs to U.S. farmers, who he says have been targeted unfairly by China.
We're taking in tens of billions of dollars. We're giving some of the money to the farmers. I'm making the farmers more than whole. The farmers are doing better than if China, frankly, were buying. I'm taking a piece of the massive amount of tariffs. We're giving them to the farmers who have been targeted unfairly by China.
Despite the two nations imposing tariffs on each other's goods, Washington and Beijing will continue their trade talks and will meet in September.
We are talking to China. The meeting is still on, as you know, in September. That hasn't changed. They haven't changed it. We haven't. We'll see what happens. But we can't allow China to rip us off anymore as a country. We can't allow China to take $500 billion a year out of our country. We can't do that.
Beijing has pressed Washington to call off the tariff increase, but said last week that trade talks were still being discussed between the two. The extra tariffs will further harm Washington-Beijing ties, already strained by U.S. freedom of navigation exercises near Chinese-occupied islands in the disputed South China Sea, and U.S. support for self-ruled and democratic Taiwan, which China claims as its own. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Hyundai Motor and its affiliate Kia Motors have sold more cars in Western Europe than Japanese automakers Toyota and Honda combined for each of the last 7 years. And that trend continued to persist in the first half of this year. According to the South Korean car makers, they sold 550,000 cars in the January to June period this year, 70,000 units more than Toyota and Honda combined. The two automakers under Hyundai Motor Group have seen a gradual increase in their European sales since 2012, reaching its 1 million unit sales milestone last year. Hyundai Motor and Kia Motors together make up roughly 6% of all automobiles sold in Western Europe. 3 years ago, an artificial intelligence program called AlphaGo famously beat Go player Lee Se-dol in a globally televised showdown. Now, law practitioners in Seoul have made way for Alpha Law, testing just how efficient machines can be in the legal sector. Our Oh Soo-young reports.
Korea's first ever showdown between human lawyers and artificial intelligence took place in downtown Seoul, with the AI Alpha Law teams mostly claiming victory. Lawyers teamed up with an AI legal analysis software to beat their human-only contenders in analyzing an employment contract. They had to identify crucial facts and areas for improvement in the document. It's not a test of human versus artificial intelligence. It's a test of whether AI can become a powerful tool to resolve various legal complexities and increase the quality of decision-making. Alpha Law teams claimed the top 3 spots, scoring 100% in all the standardized questions.
Where there is data, there's much room for automation. This also applies in law, where the costs of legal consultation are high, but lawyers are also overwhelmed with numerous cases and documents. We hope to expand this model to other forms of common contracts used in everyday life, like in real estate.
A new venture in southern Seoul is already developing further uses for AI in order to help expand public access to quality legal assistance and consultations free of charge.
By using AI algorithms and natural language processing, we offer a platform service that is as good as face-to-face consultations with a lawyer on legal contracts you need in everyday life.
Not only does it provide legal templates for contracts, its new service launching next year will provide recommendations as well, cater to the user's need.
In the past, automated template systems only helped fill in the blanks based on the user's request. But our new AI service will make recommendations on the type of contracts that they need if they aren't sure which to fill out. As our program progresses, we hope to also highlight legal clauses, protection of rights, obligations, and other important details that the client may never have thought of.
The global market of legal tech has seen explosive growth in recent years, with more than $220 million being invested into the sector last year. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Clashes between Hong Kong police and pro-democracy demonstrators continued over the weekend, with protesters blocking travel routes to Hong Kong International Airport. Now, for more on this story and other news around the world, let's go over to our Kim Dami. Now, Tami, give us the latest on what the Hong Kong situation is developing to be.
Right, Kanyang, Hong Kong protesters moved their fight for a greater democracy to Hong Kong International Airport on Sunday to draw global attention to their struggle. Thousands of protesters set barricades on fire and blocked roads and public transport links to the airport. 25 flights were canceled. A group of protesters also pulled down a Chinese flag outside a municipal swimming pool and burned it in a challenge to the authorities. Some even wrote "China-zi" at a bus stop, implying the current Chinese government is similar to Nazi Germany under Adolf Hitler. Several hundred people also gathered outside the British consulate in Hong Kong, waving Union Jack flags and chanting, "God save the Queen." Despite Hong Kong activist leaders being arrested, the pro-democracy movement only seems to be growing. Students from 10 Hong Kong universities plan to go on a unified class boycott for 2 weeks starting on Monday. A general strike participated in by workers in over 21 industries, including finance and aviation, will also take place on Monday and Tuesday. Exactly a month after the deadly El Paso shooting, another mass shooting took place in Texas, leaving 7 people dead and around 20 wounded. The shooting began on Sunday local time when the police stopped the gunman's car between the cities of Midland and Odessa. The suspect, a white male in his mid-30s, was eventually shot dead by police. The shooter used an AR-15 type weapon, but police didn't confirm how it was obtained, and the motive also remains unclear. South Korea's foreign ministry has confirmed none of the victims were South Koreans. And just hours after the shooting, a series of new firearm laws went into effect in Texas. The laws will further loosen gun restrictions in the state. U.S. President Donald Trump said that his administration is looking at different bills, concepts, and ideas, including laws strengthening background checks for gun buyers. Germany's president expressed deep remorse for the suffering of Poland and the rest of Europe during the Second World War. His remarks came during a commemoration ceremony to mark the 80th anniversary of the start of the World War II. Our Choi Si-young with details.
On Sunday, German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier commemorated the first victims of World War II in Wielun, the city in Poland that was bombed in a surprise attack by Germany, heralding the start of World War II. The German president asked for Poland's forgiveness, speaking in their language.
I bow to victims of the attack in Wielun. I pay tribute to the Polish victims of German tyranny, and I ask for forgiveness.
The war continued for 5 years, and Poland lost almost 1/5 of its population during that period, including 3 million Jewish people. The Polish president said the tragic moment carries a message for the world and not just for his country.
The world suffered this loss to learn a terrifying lesson, a lesson that cost tens of millions of human lives all over the world, a lesson that cost tens of millions of lives of ordinary people, civilians, people not involved in fighting, unarmed people, the biggest sacrifice in human history.
The Polish president described the German president's apology as a form of moral compensation and said facing difficult historical truth has the power to bring forgiveness and the power of building friendships. The German president asked again for forgiveness for atrocities committed by his country in Poland as he took part in the main event held in Poland's capital, Warsaw. U.S. President Donald Trump had originally been scheduled to take part in the event but canceled his visit due to Hurricane Dorian. Vice President Mike Pence attended instead and spoke on his behalf. He said the Polish people never lost hope and never gave in to despair. Choi Si-young, Arirang News.
And time now for our Life and Info segment, where we focus on information useful for your everyday life. Now, South Korea's temporary fuel tax relief period expired on Saturday, leading to gas price hikes nationwide, with the biggest hike seen in the capital, Seoul. According to Korea National Oil Corporation, gas prices in Seoul stood at roughly $1.30 per liter on Sunday, with the average gas price across the nation at $1.20. The prices for diesel and LPG also rose slightly, with prices in Seoul hitting $1.20 per liter for diesel and 70 cents for LPG. The government cut a fuel tax by 15% from November to May, and then again from May to August, although by a reduced margin, to help the public cope with the increase in global oil prices. Starting this month, Korea's Transport Ministry has introduced a new license plate numbering system. However, the government is still working to reduce the confusion caused by outdated parking management systems. Our Park Se-young has more.
From now on, license plates will come with an extra number. This is the first change to the license plates in 13 years since the plates turned white from green in 2006. 2 years earlier, in 2004, the Korean government omitted the names of cities or provinces on license plates to reduce regionalism. The number of available registration numbers ran out at the end of last year, with the number of registered cars surpassing 23 million. The inclusion of an extra digit is expected to increase the number of available combinations by about 210 million.
Existing number plates can be used as they are. Any new vehicles that are registered will receive the 8-character plates.
To recognize these new number plates, around 22,000 facilities nationwide need to update their plate recognition systems. By the end of August, 87.6% of those facilities were supposed to have been updated. Of that number, public facilities made up 97.9%, and private facilities like hospitals and shopping malls made up 70.4%. This means that cars with new plates will have difficulties entering or exiting 3 out of 10 private facilities. Starting September, an estimated 150,000 cars each month will be given new license plates. To minimize inconvenience to drivers, the Transport Ministry and local government bodies will encourage the arrangement of manpower to manually calculate parking charges and open parking barriers. They will also form a response team in each region to respond to complaints. Park Se-young, Arirang News.
South Korea's Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs says it'll step up quarantine efforts against African swine fever to prevent the contagious virus from entering the country ahead of the Chuseok holiday. The ministry says it'll intensify inspections of travelers' luggage and deploy sniffer dogs at Gimpo International Airport and Incheon Port. It also plans to carry out a promotional campaign next week to warn people not to bring livestock goods illegally into the country. Carrying undeclared overseas livestock goods will be subject to a penalty of up to $8,300 US.
Good morning. Those of you in the southern regions are having another rainy day. The latest band of rain is soaking Jeju and the south coast. In fact, heavy rain alerts have been issued in those regions with a heavy rain warning in place for eastern parts of Jeju Island. And until tomorrow, Jeju, Jeollanam-do and Gyeongsang-nam-do provinces are forecast to see 30 to 80 millimeters of rain, and those along the south coast will need to brace for even heavier showers. Daily highs will range from 23 to 30 degrees Celsius this afternoon, and those of you down south will notice the drop in temperatures, while northern regions will be warmer than on Sunday. We have frequent rain in the forecast this week, not only here in Seoul, but most regions will be affected by the rain, along with cooler temperatures. That's Korea for you, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
That is all we have for now. Stay tuned to Arirang TV and we'll have our next newscast at noon Korea time. Until then, bye-bye.
2019 has been a big year for international diplomacy in Korea, and there are